Hey everyone, the WGA, aka the Writers Guild of America, is on strike in California and New York over working conditions, pay disputes, and lack of communication, among many other issues from the major studios where they work. Writers are some of the most important aspects of creating the art that you all love. And without them, actors wouldn't know what to say, animators can't bring their words to life, and you wouldn't have some of the most iconic pieces of dialogue in media history. The studios are threatening the livelihoods of the writers by taking away their pay and their jobs, being replaced by AI, even crafting scripts with AI, and then doing the dubious work of having said writers rewrite the scripts when the strike is over. These studio execs think they could run without them, but in fact, they cannot. It's pretty obvious that people are no longer accepting the working conditions they are forced under by the execs and are demanding residuals from streaming services as well as more context and data about the numbers, the shows, and projects they work on due to the constant nonsense pulled by Netflix and other companies with hiding their numbers. The execs are going to act like the house is not on fire as they plan on waiting it out, but sooner or later, their ways are going to catch up to them on their yachts. Now then, if you want to keep up with the news and updates about supporting the strikes, follow WGA West and WGA East on Twitter to see where they will be protesting. If you want to donate cash for the cause, you can go to entertainmentcommunityfund.org when you make the donation, make sure to designate to film and television since that's who needs it right now. It's not a strike fund. It's a fund made specifically for people in film and television who are affected by the strike right now. If you truly love the people who craft the stories you love, then you should donate. Again, don't just do instant boycotts or Twitter field boycott. Please follow the WGA and WGA East accounts and go to the destinations they pick and or donate to the fund at entertainmentcommunityfund.org. We at Renegade Pop Culture stand with the writers and the multitude of guilds and groups that are standing behind the writers for better pay and working conditions. With all that said, if you like what we do, please give us a like, a follow, and a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us. We are everywhere. Also consider supporting our newly launched Patreon. That way we can keep doing what we love, and that's talking about the spring 2023 anime season. And now, on with the show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And joining us, we've got Teresa.
Hello.
And this is our 2023 spring anime season impressions. For episode 1, we are covering the action-adventure, slice of life, and the others. The ones that don't really fit neatly any one genre. So, Cameron, where would you like to begin?
Well, let's start with the action-adventure category. So, as usual, we're not talking about returning shows, spin-offs, or depending on the circumstance, based on multimedia projects, because there's just too much and we want to focus on just the new shows of the season, since a lot of them can get buried under the returning shows and such. And spring is really strong, like usual. So for the action-adventure category, we have the Summon to Another World for a Second Time, which is about an isekai hero who gets, taken from the real world to the fantasy world, with the twist being that it's the same world he's been to before in the past. We have the Marginal Service, which is basically Men in Black mixed with Power Rangers, where a small secret organization takes down aliens and cryptids. We have The Legendary Hero is Dead, which is a dark comedy about a wannabe dirtbag of a human being who accidentally kills the legendary hero who was on a journey to kill the demon lord and now has to take up the mantle of the legendary hero within his body. Then we also have Dead Mount Death Play, which is a reverse isekai about a necromancer that gets sent to the modern day. We have Magical Destroyers, which is another anime about otaku culture getting hunted down by the government and the rebellious group of magical girls and one nerd to take down said government. We have Mashal, Magic and Muscle, which is about a strong, beefy boy who lives in a world where there is magic, gets enrolled into a popular big magic school, and then shenanigans his way through said school using his muscles and other means. And Hell's Paradise, the Studio Mappa anime of the season, about a bunch of criminals who are sent to an island to find the elixir of life, but then have to not only deal with themselves, but also the monsters and mysteries that are on said island. Once again, we're on a very mixed quality of action adventure. And I know a few isekais had to get put on here. It was more of a decision of how big and important is the isekai element to the show. We'll be talking about the fantasy isekai genre the next episode, but for now, Teresa, what did you think about the action adventure category?
Definitely a mixed bag for me. I would say it's probably like there wasn't anything terrible. There's a couple meh shows for me. I really was like bored to tears by Summon to Another World for a second time. I was like, who cares if it's the second time? But here we are with this like really not likable hero, in my opinion. But the hero, and then we have an even more unlikable hero in The Legend Hero is Dead. But for some reason, I feel like they're trying to make it interesting in that particular one. So I was willing to give it a shot, but it was pretty gross talking about the thighs repeatedly. That continues to be a trope I don't like in most anime, but especially in action adventure. Same oogling joke over and over again. He cares about stockings on women more than anything else, which is pretty weird for me. But the medium ones like Marginal Service and I just keep calling it the fake Harry Potter one with One Punch, the Mashal, Magic and Muscle. I feel like that, it's watchable. The animation isn't the best, but there's some humor in there. Not the most original stories. Honestly, they're going very deep into copying Harry Potter and Magic and Muscle, but if you know what they're talking about, maybe it's like an added humor for you, but if you don't, I feel like it's just like, oh, it's just some random magic school and this guy keeps beating up everyone everywhere. If you really liked One Punch, definitely, take a stab at that one. But I think there's a clear winner that Hell's Paradise was one of the really like more inventive, like the whole story is inventive. You're very hooked from the beginning of like what's going on with this guy and this character. The animation is just like mind blowing. Obviously they don't do a bad job hardly ever for that studio, but I was definitely like pulled in by the mystery element of, why can't this person be killed? I feel like in anime, you really, like in that first episode, it's so important to have like a hook to keep you watching because there are so many anime to watch that you really, people listening to this podcast, it's like, how many episodes can I give something before it gets good? I really needed to get good within the first or second one. And I think that was one that really hit it out the park. I know it's been done before, but the Magical Destroyer is like, otaku is under threat. I thought it was pretty inventive. It's like if Sailor Moon was on acid and like killing people, like that was the vibe that I was getting from Magical Destroyers with the anarchy, red, blue, pink, like heroes, and then the otaku hero. He's much more useful than Tuxedo Mask in this series. So I thought it was pretty funny. It was a little confusing at first. There's a lot of world building that they don't really build, but I feel like the character and, kind of the jokes on otaku culture and things like that really kept everything. So I feel like there is a mix of originality and like cleverness, good animation, going on there. But when it's really bad, I would say the lower ones for me would be Dead Mount, Death Play. I was just confused and starting not to care. By second episode, it did get better. When the corpse god is reincarnated this boy, but at first I was like, who is this boy? Like, how are they even connected? It took a little too long for me to really connect like that's what was going on, and then the switching back and forth between the worlds, it was just confusing for no reason. I didn't think it made it seem more clever or smart, but I do like the present day world part. I was interested. He saved some kids from a burning building. What's not to like? Summon to Another World for a second time is my lowest of the low. It's just everything I don't like about an isekai. I like the god of the sea lady when you figure out she's a lady. But everything else, I was just like, who cares if he saves this girl? Are they going to save the world? Like, why is this taking so long? That was my question of every episode. But on a whole, I feel like compared to some other seasons we've had, it's pretty strong. Even when it's, a little boring, I have to call that a win.
Mike, what did you think about this category?
Well, the good news is, at least out of the shows that we watched in this genre, there was nothing that I found particularly awful. The worst of the bunch is Summoned to Another World for a second time. And it's not even the worst isekai that we've seen. It's just, it had kernel of an interesting premise, but then just kind of gave up barely 10 minutes into the first episode, where it's just like, we're just going to be a harem in a fantasy world. That's just our mode right now. And I'm just like, nope, I can't do that longer than 3 episodes. I described the marginal service as the dairy-free version. A lot of Saturday morning cartoons, like the Ghostbusters show, Men in Black, this just feels like it would have been better if it was more fun. I could see a better version of this working. Some of the characters are okay, but on the whole, I just can't really recommend this. The legendary hero is dead. Thighs. I will say this, if you're watching the dub for this is good, but I've said this for a while now that we have come a long way from the hack dubs of the 80s and 90s. So take the quality of the dub aside, this show really only has one joke that they run into the ground. Denmount Death Play. I probably like this one more than the rest of the panel, but I'll concede to 2 things that hold it back. One, the CGI in the first episode is kind of terrible. Not like X-Arm bad, but still takes a while to get used to. Episodes 2 and 3 are better. Still not perfect, but what helps is the writing is really sharp. These characters are very unique. And the story is one that I'm genuinely fascinated by. So this is one I can very much recommend, but with reservations. The best ones are now in the latter half of the genre, with Magical Destroyers, a Studio Gainax anime that somehow escaped from 2008. I think Teresa described it best, where it's like pretty much the punk rock anarchy version of Sailor Moon. And I just found it a blast to watch. Mashal, Magic and Muscle. It's Harry Potter by way of One Punch Man. I don't think I need to sell you on that anymore. It makes up its own rules, and for that, it's kind of great. But obviously, the best one is Hell's Paradise. Obviously, because as a Studio Mappa, it's going to look amazing. It's just the story and these characters that I find just very deeply compelling.
Obviously, I think the worst one is Hell's Paradise. No, I'm kidding. Summoned to Another World for a second time sounds like such a cool idea, but it feels like it would work better as a comedy instead of them playing it straight. Because yeah, the main character sucks. A lot of the gags we see were done better in much funnier shows. Like everyone points out, that one night girl that the lead slaps on the backside is basically Darkness from Konosuba. And Konosuba is just a way funnier show than this. And it just seems like they drop in a bunch of characters just to be like, oh, hey, we were part of the hero's past. You're not going to see us again. Bye. And it's just bad world building, a terrible, obnoxious lead. Getting really just tired of the lolicon characters and harem setups. I would find some of these characters more interesting if it was obviously better written, which is nothing new. But it just seems like this show should have been a comedy instead of being just another boring isekai power fantasy nonsense show, because we're at a point where isekais are becoming the de facto genre that keeps filling up every season. Not always, but most of the time. And no one is going past the elevator pitch. This is that show. It's an elevator pitch where the creators behind a light novel or whatever did not go far enough. Maybe the manga is better. Maybe this is just a bad adaptation, but the 3 episodes I watched did not give me any urge to watch 4, 5, 6, whatever. The marginal service is just really boring. It takes up way too much time to explain its own world and world building. I got a little confused. Like, okay, are they saying aliens exist in this world? Or are they saying the aliens turn to cryptids? Are the marginal service team members cryptids? And you think with like a premise and visual of like Power Ranger themed construction work outfits, it would be a lot more fun. Like this needed the Magical Destroyers animation visual style. But the characters are all just really one note. You got your nerdy shut in. You got the female character who doesn't have any other quality or personality outside of her chest that the little annoying mascot character wants to harass multitude of times. The strong black guy, the suave British guy, the no nonsense police detective, and then blonde guy, and then the old man who runs everything. It's a really boring show out of a premise that sounds like it should be more fun. And like the marketing makes it sound like it's more fun when it's not. The Legendary Hero is Dead is probably like my most disappointing show out of this whole episode, because I think combining It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia style characters having to take up the mantle of being the hero in this world is so funny. And that first episode shows some promise. Like everyone points this out because it's like the best joke of the show, when the female lead is chewing out our hero, saying like, who does this? Who puts stockings on thighs? Anyone who does that is weird. And you see these two old men who are going to come up to him, like quickly put the radishes back into their pockets and then walk away. That's a decent joke. And by the third episode, I was dreading that they were going to do a fat joke because of one of the character twists, but they don't. It's still not a great joke, but at least it wasn't as terrible as a show we'll talk about next time, where it's just like, oh gosh, this person has an issue with fat people. But Legendary Hero is Dead cannot pick a tone or a lane. Does it want to take itself seriously, or does it want to be like a Konosuba raunchy dark comedy? And the animation just doesn't look good either. It needed more to it. The dub and the sub version of this show are definitely carrying the lackluster animation, which I think is a reoccurring problem this season, where once again, they don't have enough animators because they're overworking them to death, and there's too much anime coming out.
I was just going to say the reactions just look so bad whenever he would say something weird and they would, I don't know, the animation, they're trying to make it look like grossed out or whatever. I was like, this just looks bad. And it took me out.
Deadmount Death Play is an example of this needed better animation, because the CGI and 2D do not mesh well. It looks bad. But with this being another manga by the creator of Durarara and Baccano, the characters do elevate the animation. And I am kind of interested in the world building of just like this necromancer getting put into the modern day and giving the necromancer a tragic story. Which what saves it are the characters, because the animation's fine, and you can tell that the animation focused a lot of its time and resources on the fan service stuff, which was like, okay, whatever, anime is going to anime. It's distracting and obnoxious, but whatever, we're not going to stop that nonsense. Magical Destroyers is very much Sailor Moon on acid, like you said. I think that's a perfect description. And it probably has one of the best openings of the season.
Oh, yes.
At least animation-wise. Man, it looked great. And it's having more fun with itself. I love when they make a giant mech. It's literally them doing a giant version of putting Gundam models together. I like the character interactions. I'm glad that it's not harem-ish. It's just a guy with a group of magical girls. And no one's like, oh, he's the most desirable person, except for Blue, who is like the horny idiot character. And I'm liking it. It's super expressive. It's a lot of fun. I'm worried that it's going to like hit a moment where it's going to turn bad. But for now, the ride is very fun, super fascinating, even if the government cracking down on nerd otaku culture is never realistic enough. Because, yeah, sure, government, cut off one of your many high profit areas of your economy. Yeah, that's not going to wreck the entire city. Like, there's definitely like that whole like, oh, the otakus are the victims here kind of thing that you have to be careful about, because sometimes it is like, man, no. I disagree with them being the victims here, but it seems like it's not taking itself too seriously, which I think helps. For Mashal, Magic and Muscle, yeah, it's very much One Punch Man shoved into Harry Potter. And yeah, I wish A1 Pictures put their A team on this because it definitely needed better animation, but the jokes still land. MASH is a very likable himbo kind of lead. Like, and they haven't, at the point that I'm at, they haven't introduced the other characters yet. And by the time this comes out, the dub will be starting. But I do love the creativity of how MASH solves the solution of I'm the one person in this world that has no magic. And if they find that out, I'm going to die. So I'm going to use my muscles and my wit to pass all of these tests. For the example, the broom riding sequence where everyone's just like, fly, and the broom goes up into their hand. Of course, he has no magic. So he just does like a subtle like stomp to let the broom go into his hand. And everyone's just like, whoa, that was amazing. Even though the one character, the one with the black hair with the blonde streak through it, it's like, you didn't do anything. Or like how he breaks the record of broom flying by like javelin tossing his broom, jumping and landing on the broom so fast that nobody could see it. It's just a show with a lot of personality and definitely a magical Harry Potter-ish show that you can watch without any of the baggage. But for Hell's Paradise, yes, it's another, we're going to send a bunch of criminals to their deaths, but pardon them if they do something insanely dangerous for the emperor or the shogun or what have you, to get this thing that may not even exist. What makes it so one of the best of the season is not just because it's Mappa and how their animation looks amazing despite the fact that they are overworking their animators. It's the fact of how quickly it sets the stakes. Any character at any moment could die because they do a little thing like through the second episode of setting up some of the other executioners, some of the criminals. And by the third episode, half of them are dead. And it's not because of whatever was on the island that killed them. It's the fact that some of them were willing to kill the other criminals. Even characters that actually got like backstory and what have you were killed by the end of this third episode. And the show continues expanding upon these characters. I watched like all the dub episodes that are out right now. And by the sixth episode, they introduced something that scared me more than the fish demon or the Buddha demon things or the other criminals that are on the island. It's just like how rare it is for horror and anime to actually be scary. It pulled it off because they tell you this whole world is scary. It's dangerous. It made me shiver a little when they come across something and it's just like, oh no. Of course, the animation's great. The opening's good. The ending is good. I like the characters. They definitely have more interesting personalities from their archetypes. But now we shall move on to the slice of life / drama category. Probably the most consistent category this season.
Oh, yeah.
Where we have My Clueless First Friend, which is about a girl who is constantly bullied at school, but one day makes a friend via a transfer student who does not pick up that she's being teased and just loves everything about her. We have Otaku Elf, which is another reverse isekai thing where the isekai element doesn't really matter, who was teleported to Japan like way back in the day and is now considered a deity, a goddess and such, but is also a huge nerd, a reclusive one at that. We have Insomniacs After School, which is about these two teens who suffer from insomnia, who end up hanging out at night, stargazing and such. Then we have Skip and Loafer, which is about a girl transferring to a school from her small town to Tokyo and meets a bunch of new friends. I know that's simplifying it and such, but there's a lot more under the surface, which we'll talk about now. I like this genre category, at least like from beginning to end. I found a show like I like some of them more than the others, but I never found one where I was like, oh, this is the worst one. Like they were all different like rankings of good to like simply amazing with Insomniacs After School and Skip and Loafer. But Teresa, what did you think about this category?
Yeah, like you said, it's the most even, like consistent category. And honestly, for me, it's kind of a shock because usually I struggle with the slice of life ones, but I felt like these were like the shining light of the episodes when I was watching. I really liked, honestly, all of them. There wasn't one that I wouldn't recommend. I would definitely recommend all of these. And honestly, it was hard to pick my favorite. I didn't mind once I kind of got into the groove, my Clueless First Friends, the animation, I got used to it. It's just very silly with the joke. I mean, like that is the joke that he's clueless and it's gonna keep going. But I thought it was kind of sweet because he's so jazzed. He really likes this girl. Coming on strong and can be kind of funny and not in a weird way, just like he just doesn't know how to not tell people when he likes them. I thought it was sweet. It's honestly pretty three-way tie between Otaku Elf, Insomniacs After School, and Skip and Loafer, but I feel like the Insomniacs After School is a little bit more unexpected kind of storyline. I feel like again, it's got that hook at the beginning of kind of it's like a mystery little vibe of it, but then it kind of turns, into slice of life. So I thought that was pretty cute how it starts with the urban legend and the rumors and you know, I love cats. There's just cute cats everywhere. They just want to sleep and they have little nighttime adventures. Like, what's not to love? And it did remind us of that vampire show, The Call of Night, but there's no vampiring. It's just two kids that, found each other. Also, the school nurse seems to be, in on it, might need some sleep herself and a place, to hang out since she's helping these kids out. So I thought that was really sweet. Felt like each episode was pretty strong, like, balanced in terms of the story of the arcs of really bringing these two characters together. Skip and Loafer, I really loved as well. I think that one was actually the one where the animation was kind of taking me out with the girl main character's eyes, but I did get used to it. I just think, they're two unexpected characters at the school. And I just like that everyone else is like, I can't believe these people are friends. So they're a good kind of foil to each other. And I just thought, it has the right amount of humor. There's no oogling or gross out stuff. Her friend Sasuke, I think is her name, is a little mean and says some mean things to her friend. But I feel like they kind of, as the episodes go on, she's just more brutally honest. So I will take that with a grain of salt, but definitely they're all very enjoyable. I would recommend, if you want some easy anime to watch, especially Otaku Elf, if you're hungry or you want to be hungry, that is definitely one. I like it's more like a grumpy sunshine type character. The shut-in, she just wants to play games and have fun. And then her Miko, who is like, the assistant to the goddess, she's a little grumpy, but it's because she has to keep this goddess on track and get her out of the house. I do like the kind of flashbacks to the childhood as well about her mom and like her taking over the role. And they do a lot of really cute eating. Definitely one of the tops of this episode for me.
This is definitely the most consistent of the genres that we're covering. I don't think there's a single bad show of the bunch. Any one of these could have made my top 3 or top 5. The only reason they don't is because we have a lot of shows. My Clueless First Friend is one that I honestly couldn't stop smiling at throughout the first 3 episodes because it just is, as you put it, Cameron, a spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down. I love this kid. He is like that level of confidence and optimism that I've always strived for. He's a 5th grader who's just blissfully unaware of the way everyone teases his friend. The comedy comes from not only from him, but from everyone's reaction to his cluelessness, like especially bully characters. I forget their names, but the one with the shaved head, his reactions are just priceless. And then Otaku Elf is one of my do not watch on an empty stomach disclaimers because there's a lot of delicious food animation throughout these episodes. And also just the dynamic between the elf and her Miku is just very sweet. The more we learn about how they got to know each other through those flashbacks, the more endearing their dynamic gets in the later episodes. Insomniacs After School, I think all 3 of us had similar thoughts that this is very reminiscent of Call of the Night, but without vampires. And if you are someone who is into astronomy, then you'll probably really get into the story with these two characters and how they just kind of organically found kinship. That's just really sweet. And then we have Skip and Loafer. I think might be one of the best high school centered shows that I've seen in a while, where all the characters feel realistic than like others in like similar settings. We get to like peek into their subconscious. Like it's not just focused on Mitsumi. Like everyone kind of gets their own inner monologue that helps you get to know all the characters more. And also just the story of how this girl from a small town makes all these different friends in a city as large as Tokyo is something I just find fascinating. Definitely can recommend any one of these.
I don't have much else to add. I agree with my clueless first friend. I love his optimism, even if he isn't even aware of how people perceive him, because he's always just like, you can make barriers? Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I want to make barriers. You have curses? I want that curse. That sounds cool. You would think this gag would get really repetitive, but it does slowly start to change the perspective of this one girl at the school who was constantly getting bullied for no reason because, kids are cruel. Because as like you go through the first 3 episodes, you slowly start to see that one kid with the red hair who's all about tank tops starts to interact with them more. And it's just a sweet show. Its animation could be better, like a lot of shows this season, but it gets the job done with the writing and the antics at hand. Even Mr. Optimism can be extremely savage, but in a very like passively optimistic way, just without saying a directly mean thing to the bullies and such. Otaku Elf, a little bit for me to get on its wavelength, because at first I was like, oh, this feels like a very one-note gag at first, with the whole she's seen as a deity and a powerful goddess when all she wants to do is just lay down all day and play on her Nintendo Switch. By the way, they have an official Red Bull sponsorship, but then they have to do parody stuff of other things.
McDonald's.
Yeah, McDonald's, my favorite parody way of saying McDonald's or anime. I love it poking fun at some of the obsession with collection culture. Like, I'm going to buy these 3 random grab bag items, and they all turn out to be the same item. There's some fun stuff, but it also does balance out with the drama of like the elf is reclusive because she doesn't like how fast the world changed and how she is like immortal for the most part, but everyone else isn't. So people that she cared for and liked are now dead or cannot visit her. And that's heartbreaking. I could totally get behind the drama of it. It also has probably one of the best openings of this season. I downloaded the song because I thought it was very catchy. It reminds me of, if y'all ever heard of or played the Mystical Ninja games. And it has that like pop Japanese music combination of genres. I'm very happy with the High Dive shows this season. Insomniacs After School, it's just an ethereal experience. It's calm, quiet, atmospheric. It is very much like Call of the Night without the whole sexual undertone of everything. Of just these 2 souls who cannot sleep but bond through a shared fascination with like the sky and the night time, the stars. Probably the better looking of the Light and Films anime. Well, just in general for this season. You needed this to look amazing. You needed those Makoto Shinkai skyscapes, or else this wasn't going to work at all. The characters are complex. The side characters are all very interesting and likable. Just a lovely show. And then Skip and Loafer, very much the Horimiya of the season, or at least that's what it reminded me of, because it's all about breaking down teenage characters and the archetypes that they hold. I like that they do stuff like the blonde, beautiful one is not entirely stuck up in, the popular girl. And the redhead is like the secondary best friend to the main character, but is also not great in a lot of ways. Like with her interactions with the other characters, especially when she's trying so hard to crush on the male lead. And the male lead comes off like as the aloof himbo like character, but there's definitely things going on under him that make him more interesting as a character. And they do that with like all the characters in this show. And it's one of the few shows this season that has positive trans representation. We'll talk about the other one here in the other category, but it was just nice to see that because I remember last year when we went through the winter 2022 season and it just got transphobic really fast there. So it was a shame with that one show. But here, it's PA Works. They do consistently great work. The opening is probably my favorite of the season. I just like the characters. I like the interactions with everyone. It's right up my alley. I vibe with it so hard. Now for the other category, for shows that couldn't really fit in with the other genres or were just way too unique to be in a genre category. We first have Opus Colors, which is about these two friends who go to this art school in a world where we have AR, VR art and have to start crafting art together. Then we have My Home Hero, which is a drama, murder, thriller kind of show about a dad who goes and protects his daughter who was getting abused and beat up by a Yakuza henchman. And then, unfortunately, due to killing that Yakuza henchman, gets the eyes of that henchman's father, who runs a dangerous group and has to play like 4-dimensional chess of trying to avoid him and his family getting killed. And then finally, we have Heavenly Delusion, the first Disney Plus / Hulu anime that we're talking about. We'll get to Summertime Rendering in like another episode because that's what happened with that show. About a dystopian Japan that has monsters and then this pseudo heaven place where everything is great and peaceful and the people there want to know what the outside world is like. And then the story of this teenage boy and young adult woman who are traversing this land trying to find this heaven or just something in general, because the show hasn't really, or from what we watched, hasn't quite told us what is going on. Those are our final 3 shows we're going to talk about. Definitely a very uneven category.
Yeah, they're all extremely different. I would say that the reason they're in the other category is they're hard to be defined. So I would say I would recommend Heavenly Delusional of the 3, according to my taste. I don't think My Home Hero is bad per se, but it's definitely extremely dark. And it's more about trying to run from the mob. And it's just like not quite a lot of action, more like there's some action and then trying to like figure out the manipulations and, you know, what you were saying, the 4D chess. And it's very almost like cerebral. It's all more about like hiding your lies, getting your story straight, things like that. I also just felt like, well, I watched the dub, I should also say. The daughter and the dad interaction was like so weird at the beginning and then dove straight in to all the danger and the violence and him. Like the dad gets beat up within like less than 10 minutes of the show. And I was just like, okay, that's not what it's. I thought we were going to get to know who these people were a little bit first. No, we're just deep in it. For me, that one didn't click, but I wouldn't say, I feel like maybe if you like Death Note and you just really like the like, how do I one up someone and that kind of thing, maybe this show is for you. It bored me a little bit. And then I just was just kind of like, I hope this family is all right, but I can't keep watching. Heavenly Delusional is definitely my favorite just because I think the animation is great. The monster animation is very interesting. I was completely confused for the first episode though. That's not unusual for me though. For sci-fi anime, I'm like, I'm sure I'll figure this out in the end. Like there's that mystery, that hook that I want to see. Opus Colors, I wanted to like it, but I feel like it's just very in the middle of it's watchable. I wanted to be more gay, please, between the leads, but his friend is just really mean, especially in the second episode. So no, I'm just like, I don't know if you need to salvage this friendship, and it's getting a little sad. But I like the idea of VR art and like the artist versus the graders. It was also giving me a little like Magic School, Harry Potter, like bully vibes. And I don't know how long I could sustain my personal attention for that. But I do like the main character. They've got some, you know, they got some history, these two ones. I like the idea of, you know, a competition people wanting to win and pairing it, with people who maybe don't like each other. And I feel like it was just like a musing on class and, people who can afford to be artists. I feel maybe that's what they're ultimately trying to say. And people who have talent or, might have inherited talent and, how do you keep that on? But I would say if you like art and art school animes, I'm not sure how many art school animes there are, but if that's something that sounds good to you, I would give it a shot. I was like, when are they going to make out? Probably unlikely. So that's my take on the other category.
Yeah, this was a very interesting batch of shows. The one I definitely liked the least was Opus Colors. I hate saying that about original anime because they're so few and far between, but at the same time, you have to earn the praise. And this one, it didn't do it for me. I think I understand what they were trying to do with the whole artists and graders. Kind of like, this is sort of like a version of the creative process of any industry. This could be about movies, it could be about the anime industry. It's just, I didn't really care for any of the characters. I especially hated the friend who just kind of, he shoved like his other friends off for really no reason, or at least none that really made any sense. We have no proof of whether or not this show is in support of AI art. But if it turns out that that is the case, then that's kind of another reason to not recommend the show. My Home Hero, this one is tough to recommend because they do kind of touch upon abuse and it can get pretty dark thematically. But I found like the mystery sort of element engaging. I like how we have an adult protagonist. It is kind of rare that we get like adults leading like an anime series. I like this family enough that I want them to be okay by the end of this. I wouldn't exactly call this a fun watch, but I guess Teresa kind of nailed it when she said like, this would be good for those who are fans of Death Note and want that sort of dark thriller sort of anime that I would like to see a little bit more in animation in general. I can also understand if this is like not exactly your cup of tea, but out of the three of these, the one that I definitely recommend is Heavenly Delusion. First of all, I'm glad that we finally get to talk about a Disney Plus / Hulu original series because we didn't get to do that with Summertime Rendering. This show is honestly right up my alley. I like the mystery going on between these two kind of seemingly distant worlds. You got the inside, which is like the heaven, the sort of isolated society where everything appears to be paradise. And then there's the outside world, which is basically hell, full of monsters, in a post-apocalyptic world. The characters are all engaging. The story is really good. And episode 3 can be a lot because of something that's revealed with one of our characters, but it's definitely something that I can recommend.
Opus Colors, I found it's funny. For a show that's all about the creativity of art and how, I get it, it's about the creative process between the artist and the producer. It's really boring though. It's so boring. I do not care about the world that they set up. I don't care about the drama because it's so dead simple in how it's executed with no real flair or anything interesting. It's also a visually dull show. And that's no excuse when we have shows this season like Heavenly Delusion, Magical Destroyers, Skip and Loafer, Insomniacs After School, and Hell's Paradise. And sure, not every studio can be MAPPA, but for an original anime, it's just not good looking. It's like the characters are too sterile and stiff to be comedic in their reactions and interactions. And the art just isn't really interesting to me. It looks like they wanted to make lyric videos for a bunch of idol songs that they wanted to market to you. And it just seems like, because we've already have one anime this season that we're not going to talk about go into NFTs, it just feels like they're going to drop a bomb on us and say like, hey, we're going to sell NFTs for Opus Colors. It might not happen. It might, but either way, even if it doesn't, It's really boring.
I find it ironic how a show that's about art looks this plastic.
Yeah, very much so. My Home Hero, listen, yes, it's super melodramatic. Yes, it's got some really bad animation in it, which, once again, could have been helped if the anime industry just slowed the hell down a bit. When was the last time, though, we had a main character who was 47? Not even like college age, like middle age. And it wasn't some like schlock. It's shocking and distinct to me that we have a very, granted, edgy and absurd murder mystery thriller about this dad trying to work his way around making sure his family doesn't get killed by the Yakuza. But something just stood out to me about it with premise, its characters. It's not the best, I'll admit. I'm just more supportive of this show than others are going to be, because anime these days, it's just so aimed at one demographic of like teenagers and I want to say young adults, but even then we don't get that many young adult characters, which is sad. Part of me is just like, wouldn't it be cool if these were like college kids or something?
Or people in their 30s.
It's just like enough of making the main characters kids. I like it, but you have to be down for some melodrama for My Home Hero. Though I will say I do like it so far more than Death Note or the Death Note's author's last show that we talked about, Platinum, whatever it was called. But Heavenly Delusion might be my favorite Production IG show that they've made in like a good long while, not counting like the Haikyuu stuff. Because we don't talk about Production IG a lot with these podcasts because they're usually doing films or shonen franchise stuff, or like The Vampire Dies in No Time, or that weird Police in a Pod anime that we talked about last year. And the way that this show is sprinkling its mystery with its story and characters, with this being the other show with so far very well handled positive trans representation, this show and its team were actually given time to, at least so far of what we have seen, tell its story how they want to tell it, which is so rare with anime or some adaptations. The action is really good. The monsters are creative. The humans are all very interesting. Also a very heavily influenced LGBTQA plus show, because it's all about life, sexuality, sex, relationships, gender, and also gender norms / gender roles in society. It's just a super compelling show. Well, it's just a super big surprise to me because this is our first Hulu / Disney Plus show to watch. And I'm just shocked that Disney picked up this one. I know they're starting to dip their toes in the anime and what have you, but like they picked some very interesting shows. And like, because they have Summertime Rendering, they have the Tatami Galaxy sequel that we should talk about at some point. And it's just a really strong contender for maybe the best show of the season so far, when we have a lot of strong contenders. So what are y'all's 3 favorite shows right now?
Tough that. I guess I'm gonna go with Hell's Paradise, Insomniacs After School, and Magical Destroyers. I think those are even if you haven't watched anime in a while, you can dive right in.
I think my 3 are going to be Heavenly Delusion, Hell's Paradise, and Skip and Loafer.
For me, I would choose Heavenly Delusion, Skip and Loafer, and Insomniacs After School. Because to me, getting people into anime means showing them something that could possibly relate and be approachable for someone who's not into big anime aesthetic. My honorable mentions would go to like Hell's Paradise, Mashal, and Magical Destroyers. But I feel like you have to be on certain wavelength with those shows. But for Insomniacs After School, Skip and Loafer, and Heavenly Delusion, I just think those are the best ones with this batch, but that's just me. I know a lot of people, like, art is subjective.
Worry that Heavenly Delusion is too complicated for some to like get right on board. It's still definitely one of my honorable mentions.
I get that. No, it definitely has its moments where, because it's about that dual storytelling mode.
Exactly.
Of like, where is this going? Is the dystopian part actually real? And how heavenly is this heaven? Which, who knows, we might get a better version of The Promised Neverland if
That's true.
this show hits the landing.
And I really hope it does hit the landing because sci-fi is one of my favorite genres. And this show just kind of, for me at least, kind of hit the ground running with that first episode. I hope it can maintain that quality throughout the rest of the season.
So that'll be it for this episode. Next time we will be talking about the fantasy isekai genre and the romantic comedy genre.
Until next time, Teresa, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me at Teresa Electro, all one word, on most social platforms.
And Cameron, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter at CamsEyeView. I have my own website called camseyeview.biz, where I review animated films and shows from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/CamsEyeView. That's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/Renegade Pop Culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.